This video is about the tools I am using on my landscape photography trip. Unfortunately, I'm not using a wrench, but people ask me what camera I'm using or what lenses I'm using, and I wanted to upload this video as a future reference just to make sure that people can get this kind of information if they are really interested in. Feel free to like my videos and subscribe to my channel or leave a comment. This is my set of filters and my filter holder, and the cool part about my filter holder is that this is magnetic and my polarizer is magnetic as well, so I can just put it here and then I can turn the polarizer while wearing gloves, which is something I thought I would do all the time, but I haven't done in the longest time, to be completely honest. And the set of ND filters I'm going with is a 3-stop, a 6-stop and a 10-stop, and I haven't figured out a nice shot with the 10-stop ND filter ever, and I've owned it for the longest time. This is a blowing tool. It's from Rolei and it's a very small one and it fits in my camera bag. And there are people saying that those tools are useless and there are people that don't use them. But when you're out in the field on a backpacking trip, it's a very handy tool to remove debris, dust and sand almost everywhere. So I love to use one of those pieces and I will never stop doing so. And it's a hill I'm willing to die on. Those are Allen wrenches I need to tighten the screws of my tripod. The worst thing that can happen is that you're somewhere in the middle of nowhere and need to adjust the tightness of your tripod screws, because all the screws are getting loose over time if you forgot to tighten them up with Loctite again after you deep cleaned your tripod, which you should do regularly. And this Allen wrench is just to adjust my quick release plate of my camera. This is something that will always be part of my camera setup because it's a remote control with buttons and you can rebind the buttons on this remote control. So I can use the plus and the minus button to adjust the focus. I have a shutter button and I can use the focus magnification, and I can even use autofocus in order to do something quick and dirty if I don't have the time or the possibility to check the focus anyway. The amount of comfort I got from this purchase is unmeasurable, and I was a little bit hesitant to get this remote control because there's a lot of technology inside it and I didn't trust the battery life, but it turns out you get along nicely and I just bring an extra battery. Or most of the time I forget it and ask my friend to bum me a battery, but when I'm on a vacation, when I'm on a landscape photography trip, I just replace the battery and get an extra one, and I ended up getting along quite nicely. This is my 28 to 75 millimeter lens. It comes with a 2.8 aperture, but I don't using it for the aperture. I just use it because I own this lens and it's a pretty sharp lens as well. And while there are other lenses out there, and within the last, let's say, 4 to 5 years, a lot of fancy new focal combinations got released, I rather use this lens because I don't have the money to buy a new one. And my lens setup is pretty simple. I got a 28 to 75 millimeter lens. And I got my 70 to 300 millimeter lens. And those are the lenses I use most of the time. And with those zoom ranges, I have an effective focal range of 28 to 300 millimeters, which means if there's a shot out there with those two lenses, I am about to get the shot. Most of the time, if I want something fancy like a wide aperture or a nice bokeh, most of the time I'm using a single prime lens. But I used to carry a lot of prime lenses with me. Then I figured that carrying 5 lenses might not be the best idea if you're on a photography trip, because you only use one of them most of the time. And the main reason I use zoom lenses in my landscape photography setup is that this, namely changing the focal length within less than a second, saves so much time, because this actually isn't a 70 to 300 millimeter lens, it's a 70 millimeter lens, it's a 100 millimeter lens, it's a 135 millimeter lens, it's a 200 millimeter lens, and it's a 300 millimeter lens. And figuring out the composition in the field otherwise would take so much time, like hassling around, changing the lenses 4 to 5 times, switching it back. And I'm quite happy with the solution, and I rather have 2 nice zoom lenses instead of 5 nice primes. And I still bring a prime lens because it's a habit I started to build up, because sometimes you want the big aperture, and I use this 20mm 1.8 lens to film myself and occasionally take a nice wide angle shot. So this is my A7 Mark IV. This is the camera I use, and I am not a huge fan of telling you what camera you have to use or what equipment you need to buy in order to take landscape photography pictures, because I think if you have bought a camera within the last 5 years or even longer, if you got a nice, most cameras are nice nowadays, because the technology is incredibly sophisticated. The dynamic range is insane of most mid-range cameras even. And the reason I decided to get this camera is I used to be a brand activator for Sony, and I made a living selling those, and I'm quite used to this camera. I don't think reading the data sheet of this camera to you would be helpful, so there are 3 reasons I decided to get this camera for my landscape photography trips. And the first reason is there are dual SD card slots, which means every picture I take is being backed automatically. I used to hustle a lot with USB dongles, SD card readers, and Android smartphones, and I am so glad that I don't have to do this anymore. It's you save a lot of time and a lot of nerves and a lot of weight on your photography trips if you can back up your data. And SD card corruption is something happened to me once. I had to throw away 2 SD cards, but I was using them for like 8 years, I suppose. And I highly recommend getting a backup solution for your photos on your landscape photography trip, because if you spend thousands of euros for a trip, you can do the shot again easily. So yeah, this was the main reason I wanted to get this camera. And the second reason I wanted to get this camera was the articulating screen. So if I mount my camera on the tripod, I can find an angle to tilt this screen in order to really see what I'm doing. My previous camera was a 60 Mark I, and it didn't have one of those. And I am very happy that my current camera has one. And the third feature I like about this camera was a huge battery, because if you have big batteries, you'd have to carry less in order to get your camera operating. And if you ask me, every camera that has those 3 features is a good camera for landscape photography. It doesn't matter what brand name there is, it doesn't matter how many megapixels there are, because most cameras have 20 and above anyway. The thing that is attached to my camera is a so-called cage, and I only use it because I used to use an L bracket to mount this camera to my tripod. The issue you're having when you're using L brackets is that most of the time the connectors are blocked, and with this particular thing I can still adjust my microphone in, which is the most important input I use on the camera anyway. And it is a huge relief, because I don't have to put out tools in order to reach my microphone in. And everything fits in this bag. And the upside of this system is that I don't need to put my backpack down in order to reach my entire set of equipment. And since the drawback of the system is you can bring many different lenses, but since I don't bring many lenses anyway, it's a perfect system for me. If it's a perfect system for you, you need to find out yourself. I really hope you understand what kind of equipment I'm using to take my landscape photography trips. If you have any questions that I haven't addressed accordingly, just ask in the comments. Feel free to like or dislike my video and subscribe to my channel if you want to stay in the loop. Bye!